Yeah, so this is May 9, 2020, and we welcome you to the Bonfire, those who are watching in the recording, and hello everyone who is watching on the site on Good Game or Twitch. Today we are for episode 8 of English Bonfire Talks, and we have Bayaman.
Hello.
We have Masha.
Hello.
We have Eugenia.
Hi.
Vadim. There was no sound again. We have Oleg.
Hi guys.
We have Caroline.
Hi, hello everyone.
And Misha.
Hello.
So, I'd like to begin traditionally with a simple question, just maybe a little bit enhancing it. This week that has just passed or is passing almost, what good or bad things have happened? Something that made you happy, unhappy, delighted you, or on the contrary, made you quite frustrated or annoyed? So, who would like to begin with something to share?
Today in the morning I broke a shelf that is inbuilt in inbuilt furniture. It was the mechanism is quite complicated. So when I broke it, there were a lot of small balls, steel balls rolling around. So there were like 16 of them, and I'm not sure what is the word for it. So like
Catastrophe?
friction. What?
Catastrophe?
Not catastrophe, but about this mechanism, this device for reducing friction. For example, in wheels, in a skateboard, you have them. Yeah, and it feels like it's very difficult to find spare parts for it because it is so, let's say, tailored to this exact piece of furniture. So I think it will be broken, not broken, but the functionality and the safety of this shelf is broken forever.
I see life of shelves in your flat is definitely complicated, to say the least.
Yeah, do not become a shelf in my flat.
But could we actually say that you have balls of steel?
Well, I used to have 16 and now I have only 13.
That's a pretty decent number anyway. So.
Satanic dozen, I guess, but that's gross anyway. All right. Oleg, what about your situation this week? Anything to brag about?
Well, I don't actually have a balls of steel, so it's not really interesting week. The bad thing about this week was I had to work.
Ooh, ouch.
The good thing about this week is I have to work. You know, I've got a pretty mixed feeling about this because when you have a long vacation, like for 5 days or so, some part of you starts to miss those working days and the labor hours and all this sort of stuff. And your other part, when you wake up at 8 o'clock and you have to brew some coffee for yourself, and exactly this moment is when you understand that the life is a really poor thing, and you actually have to live it and handle it. But definitely my week was fine, and I even painted my table by myself, if I could put it in this words. I'm trying to be a painter of some sort, I don't know. I do it pretty poorly. And I guess we should connect your shelf and my table, you know, so they could talk some stuff to each other. About what they about what they handled this week.
As far as I know, Andrew may correct me, the painter is like a technician that is responsible for, let's say, painting walls in schools. But if you create pictures of people walking somewhere, so you are an artist.
Yeah, and I definitely copycated painter. I just painted my table in black,
No, black work like in tattoo industry.
like that black, you know. It was just a wooden table, and my inner sense of beauty just forced me to repaint it, change its color to better
Well,
fit into my apartment.
if it forces you to do things, maybe you are in an abusive relationship and you should rethink your life priorities.
No, actually, I kind of enjoy it. Sometimes life is pain, but this pain gives you the power and strength to move forward. You should know it with yourself. Yeah.
So about painter, uh, let me tell you a little story. So you know this film, The Pirates of the Caribbean, about Captain Jack the Sparrow, and there was a guy, a character who was Bill Turner, who was played by Orlando Bloom, and some time ago I discovered that actually there was such an artist called William Turner, and on Wikipedia he is called Joseph Mallord William Turner, 1775-1851, known contemporarily as William Turner, was an English romantic painter, printmaker, and watercolorist. So yes, we can say that artist is a more common name for people who can handle art. I mean, who can use a brush, a pencil, and gouache and watercolor. But still, kind of talking more specifically, you can call yourself a painter if you are one. If you either paint walls or if you paint pictures, if you work with colors. So there is no such strict rule that it is exclusively a guy who paints walls. That's why it's definitely like okay to say. Caroline, what do you think as a native speaker? A painter to you is only about painting walls, or it's also the person who is an artist?
It's both to me. I would say you're a painter. I'm going to get a painter in to paint my house. I call him a painter. My English is South African English, so it might vary from other forms of English, but definitely an artist is also a painter. He's an artist who uses paint.
So if we talk about somebody like Van Gogh or Dali or Manet, would you call them painters or artists normally?
Probably I would call them artists. But if somebody called them a painter, he wouldn't definitely not be wrong, not even strange, in South African English.
Okay.
And how do you see it, Andy?
Well, as I massively try to engage into art now, I mean, I have some students who are art students and they tell me about art, about different movements of art, and they bring me stories about artists, and I immediately Google that. In English, I see a lot of entries on Wikipedia and on other sites which are art sources. Well, they're called painters. It's like what to compare it to? Like we have a lawyer. Like who are you? I'm a lawyer, and then it's your general name. And then if you say I'm a barrister or I'm a solicitor, I'm an attorney, I'm a judge, I'm a notary, I'm a tax inspector, nobody cares. I mean, like people sometimes don't know what's the difference between a notary and an advocate, between an investigator and a prosecutor, and to them it's not that important. That's why you usually say I'm a lawyer, and that's enough. And I think the same is like
It covers it, a
yeah,
lawyer.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I think a lawyer is something like that, like an artist, a lawyer, it's just a group name, and you're not obliged to go into specifics, but if you want to specify, you can kind of specify, like I'm an artist, I make paintings, or I'm a painter. Yeah. And
Or
Masha,
I'm an artist. I sketch in pencil, or yes.
yeah, so
But painters certainly not. Painters are right. Whether you're painting a table and a wall or you're painting a picture, I paint in oil or acrylic.
Masha, what do you think? As you are also an artist, so how would you?
I'm not an artist. Yeah, I just pretend to be.
Okay,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what does your pretension tell you about this distinction between artist and painter?
Actually, I don't see a big difference between these words because I can call it. Sometimes I'm paint and so on, and I can call, for example, Michelangelo, like you said, Leonardo da Vinci, and so on. I can call them as a painter or either or as an artist. I don't know. I don't see a big difference. Maybe a painter is more common word, and if we call people artists, we just want to highlight their like their connection with art, with something big. I don't
Maybe their skill.
maybe.
So we kind of could say that each artist is a painter, but not each painter is an artist, right?
It's like discrimination.
Could you come again, Alec? Could you please come again?
Each artist is a painter, but not every painter is an artist.
No, it's vice versa.
I was about to say the opposite is true. The opposite is true. So an artist is the general covering, like a lawyer. But I'm an artist. I paint. I'm a painter. I'm an artist.
Okay.
I'm a sculptor.
Yeah.
Right.
And
yeah.
we can also say, for example, opera artist. Or can we call a pianist, for example, an artist?
This is not good. It's quite Russian. I mean, it's our Russian manner to call such people artists, which is definitely, it has its place in English, but they tend to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you tend to kind of use professions for that, like singer, opera singer, actor, or comedian, and so on and so forth. So we in Russian have this word artist for literally everyone who is involved in performance, in theater, in opera, in cinema. That's all about artists. But
which I do understand that, because we would say she's a performing artist.
Well, you have some prefix, you have some prefix or some explanation behind it always, but in Russian it's enough to say an artist, and nobody would think, if you say I'm an artist in Russian, if you translate it, nobody would think that you are talking about painting or drawing at all.
Yeah.
It almost eliminates this option. Like, yeah, so in Russian an artist is has no connection to drawing actually. So that's
I'd say it's closer to actor.
It's exactly because it's about.
I'd say that in Russian, artist is someone who performs on a scene, in front of a public.
Right. Which I understand that if somebody said that to me, I wouldn't see that as strange at all. I think, I don't know, maybe in South Africa we have quite a mixture of Englishes, but that wouldn't seem strange to me at all.
So, which again justifies, illustrates the flexibility of English, which is like so just versatile.
It's a mongrel language, Andy.
Yeah. I want to reply to the chat. First of all, Ariel, I've turned on the pictures on the chat, so you can send your GIF again. I found this. Thank you for your guidance. And there is a message from Sexy Rifleman. And the person is asking if it is a lesson of English. No, it is not. It is just a meeting of the English club, and we are just having fun talking. But if you have some questions about grammar or something like that, we could try to answer, or just like join our conversation. Welcome. Right. Who next would like to tell us about the week that has passed? Almost.
Well, in the beginning of this week, I I've bought a robot vacuum cleaner, and I'm very happy about it.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
congratulations.
but yes, but I haven't got it right now because of the situation with delivery due to quarantine and so on. But
You just
I have.
paid for.
I just pay for it, yeah, and
No,
I'm waiting for
didn't
now.
buy. Should be collectible.
But I have already chosen him a name, so I'm
So, what's the name?
Robert.
I wanted to suggest that we would each of us would guess the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can actually, because I don't have it right now, and I can think about the
Oh,
name.
that's a very nice name. I like that name, Robert.
Robert.
Yeah. Robert, yes.
Could
Why
I be
Robert?
his godfather?
Because Robert, it sounds similar. Yeah.
It's
I don't think a lot about name.
As
Yeah.
far as my experience tells, that any complicated name for a pet will be inevitably shortened to 4 letters or to 3 letters, if it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Not
it is a
necessarily. I knew the cat who named Mayakovsky. It's a Russian poet. And for last 10 years, he's just Mayakovsky without shortening.
What about Mayak?
What's the surname of Robert? I mean, the brand.
Friends?
Yeah. Robert and surname of Robert.
Robert Phillips.
Robert Xiaomi. Yeah.
You know, you actually could call him Bobby, just Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Rob,
Right.
like Rob Stark.
No. You don't want him to be young.
Yeah, he wants to.
Oh yeah. I agree. Yeah.
What's that? You don't want to what?
Rob Stark was slaughtered on his wedding in the age of 16.
Nice.
We don't-
Thank you.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
It's about Game of
Game of Thrones.
characters. Yeah.
Oh.
You should read finally or watch.
I think I will. Yeah.
On the other hand, we potentially could see a robot wedding, so why not? Let's try.
Yeah.
Well, we have dogs' weddings and cats' weddings.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You just 15 minutes ago you had a wedding between your shelf and Lex table, and so
It wasn't a wedding, it was just a date.
it was betrothal when you kind of promise them to each other and
You know, Andy, it's spring, so it's the most romantic time of the year, so everybody
yeah.
got something.
Everything.
Yeah, and everything. Yeah, even your headphones, yeah. A microphone.
Andrew, you have a Voltron in the background. Yeah.
It is not a Voltron. It is Optimus Prime.
Okay.
Optimus Prime.
It is.
What's the difference?
How dare you? I mean, come on. Well-
You didn't know about Rob Stark, so I guess you're both even.
As they say on the internet, it is not the same. It is different. It is totally different. Voltron, I told about Voltron last stream, about that robot that I had in my childhood and broke, and it was very expensive. So Optimus Prime is from Transformers, and Voltron is from Voltron. That's very simple. Yeah. There was some picture on the internet with a girl who was posing in front of a big robot statue, and it was some different universe. I think it was it was Iron Man. His big costume.
Yeah.
And she was like Transformers, and like, no, it's not a Transformer. But yeah.
Andrew, I found out how you can mute yourself with the space bar. So the first you have to click the mute button with your mouse, and after that you can mute and unmute yourself with the space bar.
You mean on my picture or on some panel?
On the bottom of a Zoom screen. Do you use browser or
I see.
desktop version?
No, I see. I got it. It's because I guess it's like kind of highlighting is going there, and so I can. I got it. Thank you. Well, somebody has guests, and who is going to continue? And Masha, congratulations on your new
you.
assistant. I hope he does
Yeah.
his job well.
I hope to, because mopping floors is the hateful thing in all these domestic things for me. So yeah, I hope.
So
Masha, about your purchases, how that sleep mask, does it work?
oh yeah.
Yeah, it works. It actually works, and yeah, I don't have any problems. But I have problems with all with my neighbors. So they all last week they started noising at about at 8 a.m., 6 a.m. I hate them.
Oh, I understand you very well.
Yeah, because
My neighbors are all about like yellow tulips and all that stuff.
yeah.
And 2 a.m.
So yeah, I actually didn't have a chance to check my sleeping mask properly, but I think it works. It works, yeah.
Let's hope.
Oh, good.
What are your neighbors doing at 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning?
I don't know. They do something with taps, and they played music, and I don't know.
What kind of music?
It seems it Russian chanson.
Oh,
Russian chanson. Yeah, yes. And yeah, I think that I just maybe have new neighbors right now. I don't know. I didn't see them, but yeah.
Can you call Russian chanson as like Russian country music?
Oh,
No,
No.
please no.
way. Currently, Russian chanson, it's this songs about prison and how some prison guys think about their mothers sitting in prison and all this stuff.
I think
Yeah.
Andrew can give a lecture about what exactly chanson is.
Oh,
Don't make me look like I listen to that. Yeah, well, despite
cultural phenomenon.
sorry,
It's a cultural phenomenon.
it is a cultural aberration, not a phenomenon, and it has to be somehow stopped. But yeah, despite being a kind of specialist of prison culture, or well, okay, I'm kind of A2 B1 level using this CFR scale, but this music has never been my interest. Well, except for no, it hasn't been my interest. There are memes about that, but
No exceptions. I agree.
so it's horrible that you have to live through that. It's just
Yeah.
now you have to buy yourself plugs or headphones which will block all the sound.
Yeah. Maybe.
Or buy yourself a bigger
I
robot.
need to have a good equipment to live in my flat. Yeah.
Maybe you need these robot fighters who could like
Yeah.
from Boston Dynamics who could kick the door and fight your neighbors. Or well, there are many ways I think to deal with that.
Yeah.
So
I read an information that in Russia, ordering to kill a person is quite cheap. It is around 20,000 rubles.
You can find this information on Avito.
I'm going to check.
opinion.
The last hour stream is happening, I think.
It just looks like you want to be Masha's neighbors.
Stop scaring Carolyn, please.
Neighbors are the making or breaking of your life, actually. You have a bad neighbor. What do? Move home.
We live and suffer.
Yeah. Yeah, just because it's my flat. I don't rent it, so yeah, I can't leave it. And I can't move to
Masha,
a
you
place.
you can play that game. You also can buy these speakers, big, huge speakers, and turn them on when they are sleeping. It
Yeah, like
works.
Yeah.
Rammstein or something.
Yeah.
I live in dormitory and it works.
Mm.
Well, it's kind of unfair to other your neighbors. You have to be more precise in your desire to make people suffer.
I have only two neighbors. One is above me, and the second neighbors are near me, and they both like to listen to chanson. So, so yeah,
Ah.
I can kill two
Two rabbits by one shot.
two rabbits, yeah. By Rammstein, yeah.
Do you live in Cheryamushki?
No, it's Sverdlovsky district.
Oh,
The same, something the same.
yeah. Cheryamushki is the district of Krasnoyarsk where a lot of gopniks and chefs are living.
Now you need to explain gopniks.
Like English chefs, like some hooligans, some poor folks, yeah, poor and aggressive folks.
So it's like a township in Cape Town.
Oh, right. Okay, I understand. Now I'm with you. What do you want me to? Should I tell you about I'm thinking about neighbours and things. Anyway, I was deciding which story to tell, but as you're talking about neighbours and things, well, in my area we've got. I've been here for a long time, so over 10 years ago there were all these feral cats. Do you have feral cats?
We don't have cats. We're so if it is some kind village zone where you have houses that are 1 story tall, yeah, there are quite a lot of cats. But usually we have a lot of dogs lying around.
Oh yes, I know about those dogs. They're quite remarkable. Those dogs, don't they catch the tube? They catch the transport.
What do
They
you
think
mean?
they've been written about these dogs.
They try from time to time to catch some transport that passes by, but without any luck, actually.
Okay.
Do you mean catch transport like catch a bus that
I'm sorry.
some
No,
dogs
the
sometimes?
underground.
What?
The underground.
The underground. We're really smart dogs that use underground.
Yes, I mean things have been written about the Russian dogs.
Like seriously?
Yes, in fact, actually, my daughter went to photograph these dogs, and I don't know very much about them. But in the winter, don't they keep warm in the station in the underground?
Yeah, they are really quite warm. Well, it depends on the season, of course, that they will not make underground really warm and hot during winter because all the people are really clothed.
And then they some depending on the generation of the dog. Some of these dogs know which station to get off at.
I guess they have to learn it every generation, like from scratch.
Anyway, so we have these cats. About 10 years ago, when I used to look over the banks, the whole bank was filled with these cats. I mean, they're not all pretty cats. They look like witches' cats, scar faces and quite scary, actually. But people used to collect food for these cats, and people used to feed them. And outside a close supermarket, people would leave a trolley, and everyone would donate a can or something for these cats to eat, and people would feed them. So I would look over the edge, and the whole bank was filled with these cats. Scar faces, and they had sort of cuts on them. They weren't all a pretty sight. But sometimes you quite like them, and we sort of saw kittens being born. And our plumber, for instance, refused to come to our house because he thought they were witches' cats. They looked so scary. They had these eyes that are different. They were sort of human eyes. Anyway, these cats have gradually dwindled down. The numbers have grown less and less and less. We've had cat people, SPCA, to come and neuter the cats. And these feral cats don't live long. They sort of died out until finally, at this year, there's only one cat left. They got a cat leukemia, so all these cats were dying. So from a time where I used to look down and just see cats at feeding time, now there was this one cat left, a real sight to behold. I mean, they called him this neighbor, a good neighbor. This is what made me think of neighbors. Called this black cat Grumpy. And Grumpy was the only cat left. All the others had died of cat leukemia or from hundreds of cats. Anyway, so when I went to around the corner to pick some rosemary, basically, Roger, one of the neighbors, said, guess what's happened? Grumpy, he called this cat Grumpy, Grumpy's moved in with us. It's lockdown, and he was all on his own. So I felt so happy because this cat looked such a sad case, quite a grumpy cat, not very endearing. But anyway, they said they've got two other cats. They said, oh, well, we're very happy, but I don't think if our cats could talk, they'd be happy. Anyway, Grumpy's moved in with Roger. So there's not this lonely cat. So that's my story of the neighbors. They're quite sweet neighbors.
Yeah,
That's
and
really
Grumpy is like a
cute.
cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last cat. So I don't know what will happen after lockdown, maybe. And also we're getting into colder weather now. So what as cold as South Africa can be? You're in spring, so yes.
By the way, what's the plans of lockdown in nearest future?
Vadim, sorry?
What's the plan of government? Do they plan to lift the lockdown in nearest future? Or
Are you asking
just
about the plan of the government? I don't know whether the government has any plans. I think it's fine to make the plan for lockdown, but I don't know whether the government has a plan for what's going to happen after lockdown. I don't know. I feel we've been quite strongly policed. It's all very well to criticize things from afar, though. I know that. I think, I'm not opposed the way Sweden's going about it. They've been the different people. I think there's something to say for that. But we are a different country, so I'm not sure. I don't know what the plan is at all.
What was the term of current lockdown? I mean, period of time.
What is our time now? Okay, so lockdown now for us. There's still no, there's no alcohol except if you brew your own at home. We've made some pineapple brew, by the way. Many cigarette smokers have given up. My two daughters don't smoke anymore. Don't get locked up in a house with family members who are giving up smoking, but that's gone. And there's a big black market, meaning that everyone knows where to get cigarettes at vast expense. And alcohol, oh yes, that was another thing my neighbor did. I went to pick this rosemary for my roasted vegetables around the corner. And I said, oh, I'm making roasted vegetables. I had decided not to drink over this lockdown because you can't buy it. And what did you either drink too much or drink nothing? So we decided to drink nothing. But I said, it would be quite nice to have a bottle of wine with these roasted vegetables. I had this rosemary in my hand. And he said, we're clearing out our cellar. Would you like some? I said, yes, I would. So he gave me 2 bottles of wine, and I came home. My family couldn't believe that I came home with the rosemary for the vegetables and the wine. They said, "You can keep the rosemary, we'll have the wine." But so that's what you call, I think, a fantastic neighbor. More than that, he's given me another 6 bottles, and he says he's got more. So we're talking about alcoholic in my house, but
But now we have.
I think it's a bit strict. You know, this policing, I'm not sure about all this policing. I'm not sure, but anyway, we have great neighbors. He said he got all this wine because he was told this rule was going to come into place and he shouldn't really drink. So he's cleaning out his cellar, and I was quite a lucky person. Okay, so I've got nice neighbors.
Yeah, you are lucky.
Yes.
There is such an observation that alcoholics never have a cellar with wine or even a storage with wine, because a true alcoholic drinks everything to the last drop without keeping it. And that's how you spot an alcoholic, and that's how you cannot spot an alcoholic, because if you come, there is nothing there. And so
Oh, Andy, then he's not the alcoholic, and I'm certainly the alcoholic, because we've drunken everything they've given us. Whereas he at least still had some in his cellar, I suppose, if that's the theory.
well, you could ask. And I think Vadim's question was about the expectancy, like what is the expectation, how many more days is your lockdown going to last?
I meant terms as well, but period of time, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Vadim. Okay. You know, that too, as I said, we have absolutely no idea. Unless there's something there's no idea. So they've been doing it in levels. I don't know whether they're doing other countries with levels, but we've had level 5 where we weren't allowed to even go for a walk unless it was to go to the shops to buy food. So we're on level 4, which we were allowed to walk our dogs and go for a walk between 6 and 9. And we can go to shops to buy winter clothes. But if you go to our shop, they've closed all the summer shoes off, only winter clothes. So I think they can do also, it's not the whole country. Cape Town's meant to be the worst with the virus. So we're on stage 4. Basically, the aim is to get to stage 1. And we're only on, we haven't got to the big thing yet. What do they call it? We started early.
You mean you haven't reached the plateau?
Yeah, that's it. So apparently we don't know, but we might have worse to come. But we're on level 2, so we haven't gone far. And Russia, can I ask you about your plan?
Well, I've never heard anything about the levels in Russia.
Yeah, we don't have levels actually. We just have the period of time, and for now it's about till 30th of May, right?
Again?
But it's not even a quarantine, actually.
Yeah.
It's just it's a big weekend for all the country. But people are outside, like crowds of them.
Every subject of federation introduced some set of measurements, like social isolation, some activities which are prohibited or permitted. For example, now we can go outside and do some physical exercise, ride a bicycle, for example, or running. And at the same time, I think in the recent future, we will be obliged to wear masks in public spaces.
Yes.
Now
us too. It's by law, we cannot walk out without wearing masks, which is not a bad idea.
No, actually, you need to wear a mask properly. And if you don't, it's not the case, because there is some opinion about wearing the mask. It might be worse because people don't know how to use the mask. It's disposable, and you can wear one mask. if you're talking about medical masks, like a piece of cloth, only several hours, and after that period of time, you need to dispose it. And if you don't, the probability of contamination will increase in comparison with a situation when you don't wear a mask at all. And if you wear a mask, everybody can and should wear masks, because only in this case the level of security will be proper. And I'm not sure that everybody can and want to wear a mask properly. I suspect that some people will wear only one mask during a long period of time, during many days, only to fit some regulations. But it's not the case. The goal of government, of our society, people, to fight this virus, not to mimic regulations. And I don't know whether it's a good idea. But if we wear a mask properly, of course, and everybody wear a mask, it will be a good help.
And you've got to learn to smile with your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Tyra Banks. Yeah. Yeah. There was a TV show, American Top Model, and there was a Tyra Banks who learns all the girls to smile by eyes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It's quite nice. It's quite funny seeing all these people. And quite strangely, you do recognize these people.
Yeah.
I certainly, I'm quite a clumsy person, so, and I don't have a very professional mask, so I just use a scarf. And this scarf is certainly, Vadim, in your words, it's certainly not worn properly. It slips down, and I've only just learned that you don't tie it up here, you tie it down there, and I sort of hold it up with my nose. It's a disaster. I'm a disaster with the mask.
Yeah, and you know, actually, to protect you properly, you need to wear glasses, not as you wear, but special glasses to prevent the drops of liquid getting in your eyes. And if you wear only mask, it doesn't work for 100% of your safety.
Vadim, can I ask you to do our traditional trick? Could you try to connect your phone also to the conversation? Just to try, because I think it might be better. Because apparently your laptop activates either cooler or some... I don't know, guys, if you hear this, but it sounds like an old laptop which tries to ventilate.
I thought it was something like vacuum cleaner or
exactly. That's
neighbors drilling the wall.
That's exactly what I thought last
stream. It's not so horrible, you know. Even me, I can hear some little noise, but I don't think it's
well.
And Russia, what is your plan about ending lockdown? Do you have a plan?
No.
Russia never have plans.
Yeah, actually, we don't know too, and have no idea about the plans of the government. Yeah.
After what happened this year, I think the term plan has to be heavily reconsidered and reinterpreted and probably forgotten for a couple of years because that's like ridiculous. Planning anything now is not possible. And
what's most funny about this is that right now you're actually planning to do something, like reconsider the plan.
Well, I kind of okay, if you're not trying just to mock me, but actually asking a question. I'll pretend that it was the second way. So, yeah, thinking abstractly or choosing a philosophy is kind of different from choosing specific actions. And yeah, so I mean to say that you might choose or employ some philosophy to live forward, because you definitely need to have a philosophy. It's like, who was that? Eisenhower, who said, plan is nothing, planning is everything. So
If you want to make the gods to laugh, tell him about your plans.
that's Woody Allen. But I'm talking about Eisenhower. He said, like, a plan is ridiculous, but planning is absolutely essential.
Right.
So like
I agree.
you kind of, it's I mean, any teacher knows that, for example, his or her lesson plan is going to mess up totally, but you have to have it. Otherwise you would just you would really mess up. So yeah, let's drop coronavirus for a while. I know it will come back, but let's come back to this week overview. And Baiman, could you tell us how was your week?
Oh, it was okay. I had an exam, and last 2 days it was really cold. So in my room now it's colder than in winter, during the winter, because the heating system is not working anymore.
Do you mean it's like minus 35 in your room?
No, it's like 15 maybe.
Do you have a heater?
No,
Do you need a heater? I have one.
I think I can live in these conditions.
Like a Spartan.
Yes.
Well, what I learned from this War of Mine, the game, that if you live with such conditions, you might get ill. So I think you need to be careful with that.
Okay, it is totally fine, but like it's a little bit lower than a normal.
Whereabouts are you? Are you in the same city as Andy?
Yes, yes.
Oh. It's colder where you are.
I don't know. In my room, it's colder because heating system is not working.
Yeah, you see, Caroline, it's just that we have like the temperature fluctuates really massively during the day and night. So it kind of, during the day it could be 20 degrees, but then at night it's going to be 0, and our heating system is off. Like our you don't have this in Cape Town, but every flat in Russia has a heating device. So like
Radiator.
yes, thank you. So and we also have heaters occasionally if it's not enough. And now this central heating system is off, and so some flats which have worse insulation, they of course are kind of like cooling down. And Baiman lives in a dormitory, a student's dormitory, and I think the insulation there is just not as nice as in regular apartment blocks.
Not as existent as in other places.
Yeah, probably just not existent at all. And that's why, I mean, now I'm using my heater now. It's oil-based heater, and without it, it's kind of chilly in my flat.
As you can see, there is an open window because it's too hot in the room.
Oh, goodness.
So it
I like that. Too hot in an open window.
Yeah.
It differs massively.
So as far as I can tell, so the application shows that currently it's plus 20 Celsius, and that during the night it will be plus 11. So minus 9 degrees.
Oh, goodness.
And what temperature do you have in your town, Carolyn?
Right now, so what are you talking? Are you talking centigrade? I get mixed up in centigrade or Fahrenheit.
In Celsius, I guess.
Oh, Celsius, right. Oh, yeah,
Celsius.
So right now, today, we've got beautiful weather. It's meant to be fall. At the moment, we've got, it's 23 degrees.
Oh, that's
Nice.
great.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's really lovely
Yeah.
weather, lovely warm. It's sort of cool in the morning and cool in the evening. It's cool, but nicely cool and beautiful sunny days.
Cape
That's
Townian
great.
autumn.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
jealous. Yeah.
Yesterday,
I'll tell you about Cape Town. Cape Town, they all, the one thing they say about, somebody always says, when people ask you about the weather in Cape Town, they say, don't take responsibility for the weather because it changes. It changes from windy to stormy to sunny all in one day. So, you know, somebody will be coming from Johannesburg, a friend, and they'll say, what shall I pack? What's the weather like? You just don't take the responsibility. Andy, did you have the experience of the change? Or not so?
We kind of have changes, but not as drastic, I would say. Well, it's definitely becoming more moody, our weather, but maybe not as much. Like we might have a strong rain in the morning, then sunny afternoon, then again rainy evening, but that kind of feels okay.
No, I was asking if you experienced in Cape Town.
Oh, you mean when I... Well, yeah, sure, of course. Vadim, is it your propeller? I can't hear it, but I hear a propeller.
And now
Ow.
is that propeller?
Now you're a robot, Vadim.
Worse.
It's yeah, like you have robo voice.
Robo voice?
Yeah.
Completely robo voice.
Well, you're kind of 50% less human, if you are interested in numbers. Yeah. So I think if you just take your phone, that's going to save us a lot of trouble.
I need to download application. I can't enter to
now it is
by
good.
your link.
Masha,
Just don't.
could you please call your vacuum cleaner robot so we can talk to Vadim for a moment?
No, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Vadim, can you say something now?
I can, yes.
Well, now
But-
it's kind of better.
And you have a good
Better?
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better.
I
Better.
use my better, but I didn't sing. I just keeping silent. Something is happening. I don't know. But I think now I am using my new microphone.
Okay.
It's better. Any
Yeah.
any bad sounds?
There is some kind of like the gain is probably too much, but still it's, well, compared to what was before, definitely it is better. And there is some kind of noise, background noise when you move or something like that, but it disappears.
I need to decrease sensibility of microphone. Let's see.
Probably yes.
Yeah.
Well, Eugenia, how was your week? I think we haven't listened to you yet.
Pretty good, actually. I fought my childhood trauma this week. The thing is, when I was 7, I read a really popular novel of Ivan Bunin, a classic Russian writer, which calls Mita's Love. And it's quite early for 7 years, like seriously early. So this week I reread this novel, and now I feel better because I found out that it's great, actually. And when you're not 7, it's a pleasure to read it.
What was so traumatic? I'm kind of
The
afraid
suicide.
to ask. Sorry?
Suicide.
Suicide. Oh.
And it was so, I mean, for me, 7 years old, it was unexpected. Like, totally. I didn't think he will kill himself.
But now you totally expect it in Russian
Yeah.
literature.
Yeah, now I know all about Russian literature.
What's the name of that author again? Can you tell me the name of the author?
I can write it in the chat. Just a sec.
Please do.
Ivan Bunin, yeah.
Actually, Caroline, Ivan Bunin, I think, is believed to be to have been one of the best Russian writers in terms of the beauty of the language.
Yes, and the nature.
Yeah, so his adjectives, his manner to describe things was kind of outstanding, even in comparison with even the best Russian writers. So he was well known for his language, exactly. So that is kind of about being able to read him in the original form, like if you speak Russian, but I'm not sure if it is possible to illustrate in English, but probably yes.
Gosh, there's so much wonderful books, Russian books to get reading. We should be in lockdown for longer.
Actually, this is an interesting point. I wanted to ask this question and now remembered, thanks to Eugenia. So I had a conversation with a student last week about Russian literature, and we kind of argued. So he said that Russian literature is very depressive. And I kind of agree, but I also think that Russian literature is very optimistic. I mean, people say it's not, but I think it is. It is definitely very optimistic. It is this is my message, which I want to express. Do you agree, or do you disagree?
What do you mean by optimistic? Can you show some examples?
Well, I can of course develop my point, but I first want to I don't want to bias you. I don't want to put any chance for prejudice. So let me just outline the question. So Russian literature is depressive or it is optimistic? So what is this?
I think Russian literature is very deep, and it can find the bright and dark sides of our reality and psyche of people.
Mm-hmm.
And because of deepness, you can, if you focused on depressive aspects of life, you can find everything.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you can find everything on the light side, on positive side of literature and reality. But people tend to be more depressive than optimistic, and because of that, they can find a lot of depressive stories and novels in Russian literature.
Mm-hmm. So it's like depression is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Rephrasing the famous phrase. So.
Of depressive beholder.
I was just reading the back of a book, probably because I'm looking at the odd sort of thing on Russian literature, but it just said Russian literature was very adventurous. I know very little about it, but it just said Russian writers, right from those early days, were always very adventurous. They went to places other people hadn't gone yet.
Like abstractly adventurous.
Adventures in mind.
You mean innovative, like concerning ideas which and exploring ideas which nobody had explored before them?
Yes, and they were quite daring with that exploration. I can't give examples, you would know, but does that make sense to you?
Yeah, of course.
Basically, I was just reading an opinion, so I haven't read, I don't know enough about Russian literature to know what they meant, but it was just, probably because of speaking to you, just interested me. They said, Russian writers were adventurous. They explored far more than other people dared to do.
You mean not describing some adventures of people traveling, or just describing some feelings,
inner world,
inner world of our people.
Not an adventure, but it was more daring. Is a better way to put it. More daring.
You mean?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
In this sense, yes, I can agree.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, well, I've got all sorts of things, many books to read. My daughter's actually read Russian literature, but I haven't. She sort of, what she said to me, maybe you should try with The Idiot first.
Idiot.
What is that? Do you know that book?
Well, Dostoevsky is definitely a good choice to begin with. Because
I'd better start with.
And to finish with.
I'd
I
better.
thought maybe because I was an idiot.
I'd recommend you to start from The Crime and the Punishment of
Oh,
Dostoevsky.
Crime and Punishment. Does that come before War and Peace?
No, it was, as far as I remember, it was later than
Chronologically later, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want to read Tolstoy, better start with Anna Karenina.
That's what my daughter said. That's her favorite of all time. Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's locked down. I don't think the libraries are open, so maybe I can make a plan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're very welcome.
Anna
And
Karenina.
about
Sorry. Go on.
yeah, about the depressions, for me, it depends on an author. I mean, Tolstoy is optimistic, Pushkin is optimistic, Turgenev sometimes, Chekhov always, Dostoevsky and depression is actually the one. So yeah, it depends on. And yeah, Bunin is depressive. I just read a whole book with Bunin's novels, and he's depressive.
I say that Russian literature has a different function than a literature of another countries. Because Russian literature is all about a journey to catharsis, to redemption, to find a new meaning, to find some way out of our harsh reality, our poor weather conditions, our better relationship with our government. Yeah, like if we talk about classics, it's about our emperor's government. Yeah, that's why Russian literature tells us about these bad conditions and what could become a person in these conditions, and what could he be and what could he become to change these conditions. That's why the Russian literature is depressive and optimistic at the same time, because it tells us about harsh conditions, and it's very depressive. But also it gives us hope to move on from that. So
That's a
my
really
point.
lovely explanation. Thank you.
I'm not really
It's a way to
familiar.
put attention. I like that. That's beautiful.
I'm not
Thank
really
you.
familiar with the problems with harsh weather in Russian literature. Like it feels like it's
Have
just
you
in the
ever
background.
have you ever read letters of Huntsman by Turgenev, as far as I remember,
Oh,
or Gogol, Chanel? I don't know how to call it in
And
English.
in the poetry, it's always I forgot the author, but I know this poetry about like don't kill yourself. It will be a summer one day, somewhere.
Let's say the captain's daughter of Pushkin. There's a lot about weather, and you should remember that the weather it could change the literature, but not just reflecting in this literature, like straight reflection, but it could affect the mood of the character and what he do.
And sometimes it expresses the mood of a character, but it's I guess too deep. Well, and one thing about Russian literature, sometimes it tries to expose the issues, the problems with our life, our government, etc. Like Gogol started it with the Revizor, and after that, there were a lot of writers who tried not to just write a book, but to write a book which will change the world, which will change the Russia. Like, for example, Solzhenitsyn with Archipelago Gulag, he clearly wrote it to change something. And that's why sometimes it's depressing, because you're reading it and you understand that nothing was changed.
It's actually a funny thing because just yesterday I've listened to a podcast of our literature critic Galina Yusufovich, and she said that that's quite a problem in Russia. We don't have a lot of experience and expertise in writing good, funny, entertainful books. Our great books, they're about changing the world. But when you just want to read something lightweight but great in the same time, like, I don't know, Mark Twain, let's say, yeah, or Dickinson, or Dickens. Sorry, Dickinson is Iron Maiden's vocalist. Dickens is the author. Yeah, there's not so many authors in Russia who could do that. But I'd say that there's Ilf and Petrov and Bulgakov who actually were able to write really great and entertainful books.
Can I just chime in? Ilf and Petrov, with their 12 Cheers, put me in such a depressive condition, which nobody have ever surpassed. I mean, like the ending of.
Should I type it to you in the chat?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So this, Caroline, this book, 12 Chairs, is a. Ooh, it's probably one of the most prominent comedian books of the 20th century, which was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was kind of a governmental order. And so the writers were employed to write a nice book, which was sarcastic and making fun of and mocking social norms and disadvantages and some so it was kind of a caricature, and there were several films, several ecranizations, screenings of that book, and the book itself is believed to be this kind of comedian nature, very funny, very light, but the ending, as I said, was just. Actually, that's how our conversation began with my student. I said that Ilf and Petrov are massively depressive. Just kind of, they almost choked me to death with their humor, and
Totally.
yeah, and I mean everything else just is a light tale compared to this humorous piece, and that's my take. Well, maybe it's just that. I'm not. I can't digest what they wrote, and the same style kind of. I'm not sure how I should explain this office style of writing. I feel suffocated when I read this. I never feel the same when I read classical heavy literature. I could reread it and. Spend lots of time with it, but this book, no, I don't know why.
When you were finishing the 12 chairs,
Неизвестный поддержал ваш канал на 100 рублей и сообщает: Гаганглиш Бенфири.
Could you please repeat, because there was a support for 100 rubles. And it was voiced by robo voiced by this famous bot Maxim, and it was go English Bonfire, and
just tell us the truth. You love money more than us. That's
Well, actually, that's what 12 Chairs about.
Yeah. When you were reading the ending of 12 Chairs, have you knew at the moment that there's a second part, a golden calf? I don't know.
I did, but I couldn't read it after that. I just didn't believe the book anymore.
Oh, okay.
To me, it was just a massacre of a hero, and I just was like, "What the hell have you done?" And then I just couldn't force myself to read on.
I think the second part, Golden Calf, is as brilliant as the 20 Chairs.
Yeah.
And actually, what make you, why you are depressed? Maybe
What makes
it's
you
because,
white?
actually, it's because the source of humor. I think the humor appears when as a reaction of something painful, problem, tragedy,
Yeah.
and it's a attempt of us to make sense of it, but emotionally make sense and transform it into humor and to laugh at it. And actually, it's a kind of how to say, maybe it's some attempt not to go mad because of some problems and transforming into funny stories in satiric stories as Ilf and Petrov did in their masterpieces. And I don't think that it's a bad. I think humor it's a great thing, great and even maybe better than wisdom. I don't know. Maybe it's a part of wisdom to see the world in and laughing at the same time. Have brains and minds to laugh, to have wisdom to laugh on this.
Well,
But yeah.
I think you, as always, look quite deeply, and I think you are correct. So I think that, well, maybe I should just do what Eugenia did with Bunin. I need to reread and see what happens now, because it was, I think, 10 years ago, exactly when I read Solzhenitsyn for the first time, and I kind of went bonkers immediately after that. And because that was kind of the division of my life, like before Solzhenitsyn, after Solzhenitsyn. And I mean, that's
Joy
like...
Division?
Yeah, Joy Division. Like I left it that year. I left my Joy Division to the Depression Division, and so I think just this book about 12 Chairs just triggered too many points in my head about especially that final scene. I think I was just massively irritated so much that I just couldn't tolerate it at that time, and maybe that's the point, that they managed to... It's like Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. It was one of the best books I've read, because the amount of conflicts I've had with that book was just tremendous. I mean, we were fighting every page, I think, and I was so in such disagreement with everything what Scarlett said or other people said or did, and I was like, what the hell? And I was infuriated with what they were saying, and it was so captivating to read it. It was such an emotional turmoil. And
thank you, my dear. I don't give a damn. Do you remember?
Oh yeah,
Thank you, my dear.
I cried.
I don't give a damn.
So they were. It was brilliant, and I mean that Scarlett. I think. Gone with the Wind was rather maybe disconnected or more distant in my head than these 12 Chairs, because 12 Chairs was maybe closer to me and kind of maybe like at micro level, and that's why I was overreacting. So maybe I just have to read and then come back to you with my feedback, like what I will have felt this time.
I hear it like Gone with the Wind.
You mean like a weapon?
Yeah, Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind. I keep thinking of it these days because of the Prohibition days. You know, Rhett Butler, he went off and he brought in all those, Prohibition days always makes everything illegal. You can get it easily. I keep thinking of this Gone with the Wind because we prohibited to do everything.
Well, there is...
Maybe he was looked down upon because I think he went and got alcohol or something and brought it across the border and made a lot of money during the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess he had too much soul to not be injured by it.
Exactly.
there is a funny message on the chat. It's worst name ever, which is quite an interesting play of. So the person is definitely being.
I just read.
Yeah.
I'm truly sorry for interruption. Scarlet is a bad word coming. So.
Well, I actually agree. I mean, I have complicated feelings about Scarlet, but for me, that's the brilliance of the book. It has the really bad person in the center of it, and it made you to feel for that person, to really feel for her,
Yeah.
hate her, and feel for her in the same time. And that's weird, but I love Melanie, and Melanie always like my angel who guards me through this book.
Carol, actually,
Okay,
I want.
that's good. I was thinking of that now. That's a good way of putting it.
Karen, actually, I wanted to ask you if you have any English written classics in RSA, local classics. Do you consider some of the books that was written in RSA as classics?
Yes, I'm just there are a few, and I'm certainly not. If I'd had some time beforehand, I would have put them maybe in a more correct order. But what things that come to mind were "Cry the Beloved Country" by I'm just trying to think. "Cry the Beloved Country." It's quite that's quite sad, you know. "Cry the Beloved Country" is one of them. We've got a few. They're not all coming to my mind at the moment. I don't know why. "Cry the Beloved Country" is a classic. Then people like J.M. Coetzee. Have you heard of J.M. Coetzee? It's political for now. Yeah, I can't. I don't know why that "Cry the Beloved Country" is the one that came to mind. I think they're more deeper ones. And I'm thinking of Andre Brink's novels. Andre Brink. I'm just trying to think of the name. I've read all of his, but I can't. Gosh, so long. I'm going to come back to you with that one.
I'd really be very grateful if you'd have some list for the next call.
I would love to. I'd love to think about it more deeply.
Yeah.
Because I haven't looked at South African classics, but we have a few classics.
Yeah, because right now I'm looking for some sort of new and deep book to read in English, and it would be great to have something.
Oh,
thank you.
With pleasure. I'll give it a better thought.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Caroline, do you know anything about Coetzee? There is a question on the chat. I think it might be a South African surname.
Yes, it is. His name is J.M. Coetzee.
Coetzee, okay.
Yes, he's a living. He's a living author. He's left South Africa. He lives in Australia. He was a political writer, and actually, to be quite honest, I was a bit nervous to read his books because they were very strong. I've read interviews on him. I'm just trying to think. I can't think of the name of his book. I haven't read it, but it's a strong, very political book. And it's well read. He came out very strongly he's very strongly political.
Worst Name Ever says that he is a Nobel winner, Nobel Prize winner. Mm.
Yes, he is.
Andy, could you tell us why do you think that Russian literature is actually optimistic?
Because it gives hope. And that's basically what you need. I mean, I'm thinking of Solzhenitsyn, Tolstoy, and Dostoevsky exactly. I think the most profound guys, those who actually shaped and who are, I think, most well known outside Russia. Yeah, like if you look superficially, if you look at the surface of what they say, what they describe, let's say, it's kind of dark colored, sure, but at the same time the characters are always trying to progress, fight, challenge, find answers. They don't surrender, they don't give up. If they do, they still manage to come back, and they ask a lot of questions, and that's, I think, what it kind of coincides with what Caroline said, that Russian authors were very they ventured a lot. They dared to ask many questions that are very scary to ask, and I think I start hitting myself for doing that, but again, Professor Peterson was talking about that, about Tolstoy, that Tolstoy eventually kinda committed suicide because he left his family and went somewhere, just wandered forward, because he just began, like, he was afraid to ask some questions, and at some points he allowed himself to ask questions, and at some points he forbade to ask some questions, and I don't know how to explain this. It's just that, you know, when you talk to people, you kind of want to feel that they also think about what you think about, that you have to kind of breach with them. You have to know that we are both afraid, we are both existentially afraid, but at least we honestly speak about that, and we honestly agree that this is very difficult. And it's not that we are actually fooling ourselves. We're not just kind of exaggerating or overthinking. No, we are just actually being very, we're just digging very deeply. And I think Russian authors do that. And I see it optimistic because, as an optimistic feature, because it's kind of very deep friendship with, very immersive friendship with this author. Because when you have read this author, you kind of feel that you're not alone. And if you're not alone, it means that there was a group of such people. I'm kind of
Неизвестный поддержал ваш канал на 50 рублей и сообщает: «Нечистрый малый соми пиопли».
Sorry, there was this bot voice. It said... Did you hear that, or you can't hear the voice?
No, we can't hear.
Okay, so
but
you will.
We can read.
You will watch it maybe, and you will understand why I'm laughing, because it was nice stream, awesome Piopli, and I'm sorry, dear Piopli, that I'm kind of my thoughts are very scattered, and I'm having hard times to assemble them. But what I'm trying to say is that when you read some people, they strangely, I wrote about it once on my social network, that you strangely discover interconnection. The sharpest feeling I've experienced with this was when I was reading The Witcher by Sapkowski, because Sapkowski quoted Tolkien, Tolstoy, Cervantes, and which were also partly quoted by Solzhenitsyn. And then Solzhenitsyn and Dostoevsky were quoted by Peterson, and so on, and Nietzsche was mentioned by Peterson. And then you kind of touch this network of people who are the basis of modern thinking, of basically any thinking that is just kind of a colossus of literature.
Орснамевер поддержал ваш канал на 100 рублей и сообщает: «Фой Толстой с фамилией Веры Пауэр Пиоплиндеет».
For Tolstoy's family, very poor people indeed. So, thank you, worst name ever. What I want to say is that this literature basis is such a massive support thing, and being desperate. I mean, at some point, I'm going to tell about Peterson's idea again, that if you are depressed or you have this existential despair, it's actually not that you are crazy or that you are wrong or that you are thinking badly. No, it's actually quite an indicator that you are thinking in the right direction, because if you have intelligence, you will be depressed, you will be lost in this existential hole for some time until you find better answers. And so where do you find answers? Probably at the same place where the same people inhabit, and these writers, and so you end up in their company and you feel that, well, actually I'm not alone, I'm not deserted, I'm not the only one who is thinking about it. And so there is some hope, because they didn't give up, they were still asking questions, and they were still striving for some better understanding of the world. And so I probably should do the same, because yes, the battle is probably lost already, but as for example Theoden in The Lord of the Rings said, we shall fight anyway. So, and this gives you this kind of optimism charge that you are still galvanized to go on and go on and go on. That's what I can say. Pretty an abstract thing, but yeah.
Talking about questions that you have and then you learn that other people have it, it's quite an important thing in psychology of society. So it gives great relief to people, and to me too. For example, when I have some memes, like the most simple ones, for example, the common situation when you wash dishes and you place this dish somewhere on the top, and there is a water drop sliding here, and that people are like, ugh! And it feels so good to know that you are not alone with this feeling, that there are other people who experience the same.
Yeah, but there are, well, this is, I totally agree, and this is also quite of high value, but there are questions which will make you a pariah. Karin, do we have this word, pariah, in English? Kind of an outcast, one who is banished.
He's an outcast.
Yeah,
pariah,
so
no?
Maybe pariah. Yeah, I'm not sure.
A pariah.
Yeah.
Like South Africans were considered the pariahs of the world in apartheid.
Thank you. Yeah, so a pariah. So you feel like a pariah because you express this openly. Like you go talk to your friends or your girlfriend or your parents, and they say like, "Go away with this conclusion that you have come to. It's just ridiculous, nonsensical. Go find yourself a job." Or busy yourself with something else, and that's what you hear from people, and then you open the book and like, oh, actually I wasn't that wrong.
Actually, I don't have to get a job.
Well, no, you do, but I mean, it's a different story. I mean, it's important to understand how these questions work and what's the actual logic of the question. You have to get yourself a job not because it is some kind of abstract obligation, but because there are good reasons for that, that it is your way to explore the world. And what is a job is a very stretchable concept. Yeah. And I was very heartbroken when I read Martin Eden by Jack London, I think it was.
London, yeah.
The same, yeah.
Because he was so young, he was 25 when he committed suicide, and I was like, well, come on. I think you just need a mentor. I mean, just that guy didn't have a mentor, didn't have anyone to show him that actually there are ways out, and to tell him like two basic principles against depression, which I always now spread. The first principle is, if something bad is happening, it will pass. It's this Salomon's principle, like if it is bad, it will pass. If it is good, it will pass. And the second principle, if you are in a hole, the first action you have to do is to stop digging and just give yourself a break and think about how to get yourself out of that hole. And nobody told him that. And it's a heartbreaking story. So authors, especially in a big part, Russian authors, give this kind of safe haven for a lonely, desperate thinker or person who wants to ask questions which are not popular, which are actually being oppressed by the society, because they are not exactly that. Especially now that we have this trend of positivity, stay positive, stay motivated, the world is beautiful. It is not. It is not. Partly because people deny that there are some questions to be considered. So, yeah.
It's not Russian literature that is depressive. It's you are depressive, Andy.
I am?
Okay, I'm just mocking you.
I feel like this trend of positivity is past.
Yeah.
Thankfully it has.
Yeah.
When Maria was leaving to turn on the lights, there was something in background that looked like this cat.
I don't know, maybe some ghosts.
I guess it's a sign you should have a cat.
I have a cat. She lives with my mother. So yeah. It's enough.
There is this cat on the chat, so people who are listening, please go on, have a vžuch on the chat. So chat says quite interesting things. First of all, that the description says I'm playing Deus Ex. Well, apparently I'm not playing Deus Ex. I'm talking to people. The point is that it's impossible to remove the game that I'm playing on Good Game. So I have to keep something like a tag. And probably I will play Deus Ex, maybe not today, but next time. So I have no idea. Oh, hello, Light. Nice to see you. Then Hadok says you're alone with this. Then Bishop, you're not alone. And then, of course, not he got dust mites in his mattress. And I think the next is about Martin Eden society did it like London by himself couldn't exist among all this hypocrisy. I guess it was about Martin Eden. And thanks for vžuchs, for these lovely cats.
Hadok is actually Sergei Dronishnikov.
Really? Oh.
Yeah.
Now we will be definitely banned because it is prohibited to reveal the identity of users.
Well, but worst name ever, I don't know who he is. Well, he knows the bishop, and I don't think that he remembers the story in the beginning. So probably he's someone from the club too.
Apparently. I mean, this person knows how my name was created, and that's a mockery on my name. Because my name, worst name Araf, is it's like worst name Russian Federation. And,
yeah, I understand it.
So.
Well, probably this is Koля, maybe. Or Light is Koля.
No. Light is from Good Game. He is not from the club, but he has become our permanent visitor on the streams. Yeah. And Koля has a different nickname. So let the mystery be a mystery, okay? I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a very, very nice message. I am the story, so my name is the worst. I will probably have to sleep with this sentence this night to understand it. It's so deep. Well, finally we are having fun with the chat. The thing is developing, and I'm happy to see that. I, first of all, have to ask, do we have any more questions before I proceed to the agenda question?
What agenda question?
Mm-hmm. We have agenda? What a surprise!
We didn't know.
Well, I mean, I always have something up in my sleeve to kind of be able to jump with it to facilitate
It's like
the
we've
conversation.
been talking for 2 hours and we just started with agenda.
2 hours already? Can't be.
Production, yes?
Yes.
To agenda.
You can turn on the timer in Zoom settings and it will show that it is 1 hour 56 minutes.
It's yeah, it's the online time, but I'm calculating by the recording time, the official time. It's 1 hour 30 minutes. And yeah, worst name ever is also mocking 2 hours later, time to agenda. Yeah, it's how it works. So
Okay, agenda.
so no questions to raise.
We all need
What's
to
your
know
agenda
the
is?
agenda.
Yeah,
Because,
we are kind of intrigued. Yeah.
Okay, so this is something quite creative, I hope at least. Vadim and maybe Misha, you probably could remember that about 2 years ago at Kamenka we had a topic devoted to museums. We worked out concepts of museums. Vadim, do you remember?
We had a lot of things, and museums, theaters, newspapers, and some programs.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So I think you should remember because it was, I think, your concept that. So the idea of the meeting was to work out museum concepts, like museum of different things, and we split into groups. And each group had to present their 5 or 10 concepts of various museums. And I think it was Vadim who came up with the concept of a museum of museums. Or was it somebody else?
I don't remember. I remember maybe it's not about museums. Maybe it was another topic. But I came up with idea of museum of inner of our body.
Yeah, that too. Yes, you had a museum of anatomy, how to show what a person consists of.
Yes, and you can travel inside your body,
Yeah.
and inside in building, side of the building.
The Museum of Museums would actually officially be called Meta Museum.
Meta.
Yeah. Like, for example, you have Google, it's a search engine, and there are meta search engines that simultaneously use all the other search engines to give you the results. The same with the torrent trackers that don't work just with one tracker, they work with every world tracker at the same time.
So at that meeting, we actually had so many brilliant ideas that I seriously thought about putting them into life. And the more I live, the more I kind of realize that, yes?
The more I live.
Well, that's what
sounds like you are 40 years old or 45, 50.
Well, 30 something, I guess. And yeah, so the more I live, the more I want to build a museum. And because it's such an appealing concept to me, I mean, an English school is a perfect thing. And actually, if it is a big English school, we could accommodate a museum inside, right? Because it's kind of limitless art space. You could use your museum as a powerful teaching tool. So what my message, what my request is, let's imagine that you were given an opportunity to actually found a museum of whatever you would like to exhibit, and it can come in any shape, any form, any architecture, any concept. You have like best designers and architects and engineers and builders.
Орснамевер поддержал ваш канал на 50 рублей и сообщает: For agenda are wonderful people.
There is a message on the chat with support. For agenda, you are all wonderful people. Well, that's probably what I should have begun with. Yeah, so this, and then second point is the museums. Thank you, worst name ever. and there is a drama happening between Shadenium and Hadok on the chat, definitely arguing about who is who. So I will make an example. What my concept of a museum would be. I would even give two. The first one is about memes, and I'm kind of half serious about it. So to rent or to buy a warehouse, just a space with lots of rooms, and just print a lot of memes, just kind of thousands of them, and put them on the walls, and that's it. And I am convinced that this idea shall go around the planet in no time. Like whole Reddit and 4chan and other social networks will just rush to Krasnoyarsk to see this museum or whichever city we are going to choose. And I actually think it is quite possible because, well, maybe I'm just outdated or not informed, but I haven't heard of a real tangible museum of memes where people actually exhibit funny pictures, funny squares with no deep meaning, and
Squares.
and we could actually diversify rooms. I have to explain probably, Caroline, what are memes, because this is a kind of modern word which means funny pictures on the internet. So kind of comicses or just some live situations depicted in a single shot with like that what Misha is now showing, which is pretty nonsensical. Thank you, Misha, but it's a meme. Very little sense, very much fun, because it is kind of pertinent to this current generation, and it's kind of how humor is represented currently. It's not jokes, it's not anecdotes, but it is funny pictures which take a moment of your life and produce hundreds of smiles every day. So I would like to diversify rooms. Like one common room will be for social acceptable memes, which are kind of like understandable.
It will be a small room.
No, well, it depends. I mean, I could, I think, in my collection of 10 or 15,000 pictures, I could kind of come up with enough, I think, material. And if I take Misha's collection, who has just... I thought I was kind of organized on my computer, but you should see Misha's collection of folders. Like every meme goes to a specific folder. Like if you saw that picture, like memes in case Trump wins, in case Trump loses, or Clinton wins or loses. If you thought it was a joke, no, it's not. It's Misha's folders. I mean, it's the same story. So the first room will be kind of social acceptable, and then we will have like cats and political jokes and so on, and a room where you will literally have to sign a paper that
non-disclosure agreement,
no NDA, and also that you will have to refuse all your rights to sue the owner of the museum, like that you will promise not to ever go to the court with what you will have seen. And because otherwise, if I, for example, were in the USA, I think I would go to jail for like not no less than 1,000 years, and that's not my plan. I mean, it's an appealing idea, but like again to produce some fun and memes, but still, I have something to do yet. And the second concept of museums is I have a lot of souvenirs, which are just collecting dust in bags or around my flat, and I kind of feel sorrow about that, and I thought about that. So one idea which I came up with is to make a video about each item or several items, which some ASMR artists do, or just some bloggers, they tell about their things. And I thought, well, why not? And actually I'm thinking about, because if I can't find a place to store my souvenirs, I can send them all online and share my stories with people, because it is a story and an item together. And that's partly why I play games, for example, because I want stories which are also aesthetically designed. And well, these are two my concepts, quite simple, but what kind of remains in my head has remained for a long time. Museums are also wonderful. Memes, I thought you were speaking about ideas. One of the definitions of this word is idea. No, Light, I mean memes, exactly memes like haha pictures. And unfortunately, I'm a meme maniac. And I'm sorry if I have broken my image right now. So, yeah. Get to prison, infected with memes, break down, become a meme, have a good one. Well, that's my retirement plan. It's going to be. So, who would like to begin? Museum concepts.
Museum of Dreams.
Museum of Dreams. Okay.
It can be pictures, it can be texts, but a lot of dreams of different people. I think it could be pretty interesting, and for some people who don't have dreams, as we found out on a previous bonfire, it could be even more interesting because they can like have other people's dreams for themselves.
So dreams, you mean night dreams when we sleep?
Yeah, yep.
Oh, because I thought about dreams that we have during the day, like.
That actually can work too.
Yeah, I actually was quite fascinated with that.
Two rooms.
It sounds like a name for a metal album, you know. The Museum of Dreams.
I'd say pop rock album.
Okay, I really love it.
Yeah, easy.
We had one group. I had one group. We sometimes had a strange phrase popping up during the lesson, and we kind of thought that we would create an album, and every such a phrase would become a song name. Like I also had August, and gosh, I need to ask my sister because she was in that group, and she wrote everything down, and so I need to bring this next time because it was such a surreal fun, and it was also a very bonding activity. So Eugenia, could you outline how you imagine this museum facility? What rooms? What kind of organization of the space?
Well, pretty simple, I guess. Just the rooms, and on the walls you can see like maybe pictures, maybe some paper sheets, maybe some screens with video. I mean, if people can like make a video about their dreams, why not? Who am I to forbid?
I think you're currently old school because now you can have VR goggles and well, you could have different dreams. Do you mean dreams when you sleep?
Yep, night dreams.
Yeah, so VR goggles will be the best one for this.
Maybe. Okay, we need a room for virtual reality. Okay.
It could be just one department of the whole facility. I mean, like if you want classical dreams, you go for that. If you want like Zoomer, Boomer separation, so and Doomer for nightmares, and yeah.
If you think about it, maybe the whole Steam is just a museum of someone's dreams. No, interactive dreams.
Well,
Steam is the platform for games.
You know, in Indian religion, I mean, in actually the reality is portrayed as a dream of God Vishnu, and everything in the world is dream of him. We don't need to invent any artificial reality. Just
well, he better wake up.
It will be the end of the world.
So the museum that I'm thinking about is museum of living rooms of different people, because I'm really fond of well, when I'm visiting someone, when I'm a guest, to walk around and look at their flats, at their kitchen, living room, their hall, and it's always so fascinating to me, and I really enjoy the feeling of like how it is very different from my own and from all the other people. And there is also a group in VK that's called like this, and there are photos of different living rooms of people, and it's quite fascinating to look at it.
Interesting.
It's like Anonymous's workplace thread Go.
Yeah.
Actually, I love it because that's something that I think is essentially important in teaching. Something that people don't realize is that they are extremely interesting. I mean, every single one of them, they have unlimited stories which they never will to tell. And like you ask, what is your flat like? And they like, well, my flat has a kitchen, bedroom, bathroom.
Yeah.
What do you want to know? Like they go kind of like they have frustration. Like my flat is simple. I don't know what to tell you about. And come on, that's where you live. Definitely there is something to tell about.
What your wallpapers are like? Where do you sleep? What do you sleep on?
Yeah. What about your plants? What about your dishes? What about your fridge? We have this activity with fridges, which I sometimes want to try in the future with these bonfire sessions. You will see what I mean later. You can tell about your balcony. You can tell about there is an unlimited amount of stories about your flat because it's such a storage of personality. It's the basis of modern art. It's the basis of any art. You just tell who you are, and so with this living room museum, I think we can learn so much. So it's quite a wonderful concept.
The idea which came into my mind is a museum about, I can call it museum of stupidity and diseases. You know, the concept of museum, actually, the goal of museum is to give people some ideas or to learn, to teach them about something. And actually, the main goal of this museum will be the things which we need to avoid. And two parts. Stupidity, it's I know actually it has a very different forms, and we can show in pictures, we can show in books, in history, and in some examples. Even the mirror itself can show the stupidity in some people. And disease, actually, it portrays disease section. It portrays different disease and the symptoms of disease, how it influences people, and how you can avoid it. And you learn it, and in future you will prevent it to happen.
You know, there are a lot of like visually really nasty diseases that you probably don't want to look at for a long time.
Yeah, but actually, of course, that's the point. But there are a lot of disease like diabetes, which how to say, it's has not the precise feature, but a lot of people now keep going to this point. I mean, to get the diabetes, and to show people what diabetes is, what's the implication of diabetes. Maybe it can prevent some people from doing wrong things, to eat junk food, to not to exercise, and so on and so forth. Maybe it will help. I don't know, but I think it's worth to try. It
Well,
depends. You know, actually, the idea is quite vague, but if people develop it, this idea, the means of developing the implications is more important. How you show it, it's more important for people. And if you can transfer this knowledge, this idea to people, it will help. I think I'm convinced.
You know, you could actually shrink this museum to one room, and this one room would contain just a coffin. And
Coffin actually, it's not about you know, it's maybe it's a set, but coffin it's a symbol of final part of our lives. But how you came to you, not you, I mean people, how come to this point, it's more important, you know. And if people do some stupid things, they increase this speed of coming to this coffin, and they increase the speed of another people to come to this coffin.
Do you know
And
about Darwin's award?
Darwin's award?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So this is a joke award given to people each year for either dying or losing their reproductive ability via really stupid ways.
It's a award for them because they didn't pass their genes to the future.
But how it connects to Darwin? I mean, of course, it connects to idea, but Darwin is defended reproduction, and I don't think it's worth to reward by Darwin. I mean,
well,
I think it's sarcasm.
First of all, selection, not just reproduction.
But if you cannot be selected if you are not born and reproduct your genes further.
Yes, that's the word. Like, guys, you saved the humanity from yourself, from your genes.
But existence of this guy actually doomed the reality. I mean, I think the better idea for rewarding is for person who does not exist at all.
Come again?
Reward for person who does not exist. For non-existent person, because you know, actually, person who doesn't reproduce or transfer his genes actually means that this person exists. But if person don't exist, it will be better with this point of view, in sense of rewarding for non-existing.
I think it's more about living creatures, living people that failed evolution, failed this reproduction. They like died in a stupid way, and it connects to the idea that you can prevent a lot of things. And I think that your idea is more about a book called "How to Prevent a Disease," or something like this. And there's a list of list of diseases.
Of course, not about preventing from reproduction. There are a lot of ways to prevent it, actually. And not only.
I must conclude that we already have two concepts of modern art objects. The first one is a coffin, which has to I think there has to be an engraving, memento mori. And the second object should be an award to a non-existent person, which is also quite a kind of contemporary art vibe, contains this vibe, and I think we should think about it seriously. So
because if you go further, I mean, in Darwin rewards, we can there is a possibility of rewarding people who kills another people, because by killing they prevent reproduction more widely, but it's nonsense, I think, and it's not the case. Non-existing people reward for non-existing people is I think it's harmless idea, because people who don't exist can't do any harm at all.
that's as harmless as useless.
But useless, you know, the term usefulness is kind of vague. For someone, usefulness is a good idea, but for another, it's kind of harmful thing, because people who work in, for example, in agriculture, who kill animals, useful, but from point of view of vegetarians, it's harmful people, I think.
You're simplifying.
Yeah.
Don't play your.
For the sake of argument.
No.
For sake of
This argument. This is an argument like hell. I mean, don't play your tricks on me, please. It's well, Darwin's award exists to mock people who have committed a stupid act. Sorry, that's unfortunately or fortunately we can't deny this. And
but then this fact means that they die. I mean, they people who died.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Or
but
lost.
But I think lost reproduction system,
yes.
or reproduction abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very cruel idea. Cruel, and I don't think it's good. Of course, it exists.
You should probably read the cases which are awarded with this trophy, and then maybe you'll change your opinion. I don't know, because the cases.
I have already sent you the links to the Wikipedia article and the website itself.
Me? Or
no,
Vadim?
Not to Vadim.
Okay.
In VK.
Congratulations with the subscription. So unlimited information channels. So let's listen to some more concepts of museums. Who would like to proceed?
I'll just do mine, get it over with, basically, so I can concentrate on all yours. So this is a museum. You know, as things pop into one's head, and for no apparent reason, so this popped into my head, and I have no idea why it did. But so my museum room would be, and maybe you can help me develop it, but it's just I can't even think of an example. But there's a word called Mondrian. Do any of you know this word, Mondrian? A Mondrian. It's not a Mondrian is. It's not even a well-known word in English, really. I heard it from a songwriter. A Mondrian is, you'll hear a song, and it's in a foreign language, or even if I hear an English song, actually, and the song is sung, and you'll sing along with the song, but you've got the sentence wrong. But you don't know that it's wrong, but in your mind, that sentence is that song, but it's wrong. If you see that the singer's he's written another song, and you'll compare to what you've been singing to what you heard to how he wrote it, it's different. That's called a Mondrian. So my room would be, my museum would be the Museum of Misunderstandings. It would be those songs. I think it could have some, you know, those songs that you've misunderstood, but you have understood them because you've understood them to your understanding. It needs developing, but it popped into my mind, so I had to just say it.
It's actually quite hilarious because it happens in Russian, it happens in English. We have a lot of jokes about it on the internet, like songs that were misunderstood, and the quite funny lines are created in minds of people, and it could be quite a nice art gallery.
There are a lot of YouTube videos, and they are labeled misheard lyrics. Tons of them. So
Yes.
So it's pretty an exciting concept. Could be definitely.
Yeah, you could develop it. I don't know how one would develop that, but it's. And is my misunderstanding of the song the same as your misunderstanding? Or are we singing different lines? There's a whole thing in it. It's just that's just what popped into my mind. So I haven't really thought about it too much, but I think it could be developed.
It's kind of also connected to linguistics. I mean, I think every country will have to have its own Museum of Mondrian, that because like different languages won't, I think, work together in this case. People won't understand each other, or it could be also an interesting educational instrument. Like, let's have an excursion at how English people perceive their songs and how they mistake their songs, how they understand them mistakenly, and so on. Okay, thank you. Who next?
I would like to have an example. There's so many, but I can't think of a song that I've thought it. That was that line that I've thought of all my life, and suddenly it's not that line at all.
There is a funny story about my grandfather. Back in the 90s, he really liked the song that was played on the radio. It was a Sexual Revolution or something like that. Maybe you know it. And he liked it for many years, but then he saw a video of it, and there were a lot of men dressed as women, and these trans ideas that not suitable for a Soviet man, and he instantly regretted liking this song for that many years.
That's a lovely story.
Well, it's a tragedy a bit.
Yes, it is. It's tragic.
And Caroline, what was your example about the song?
I'll have one by next week. There definitely have been songs that I've been surprised by, in my own language even, that I thought it was that word, but it's that word. And I only found out later this was called the Mondrian, but I can't think of anything, but there certainly are. So it would make it more interesting if I had a good example, but I must admit I haven't.
Well, let's settle for the next week. Well, Bayman, Masha,
okay, let me have it. Actually, I'm reading the book of Astafyev right now. It's a Russian Siberian author, and he writes a lot about Russian nature. And I'm from Siberia. I'm from Krasnoyarsk. I'm from the city where Andy and Eugenia and Maria and I guess all other cities. But right now I'm in St. Petersburg. It's Western Russia. And while I was reading those books of Astafyev, I felt that I really miss Siberia. I miss my motherland, and I miss not just streets, yeah. I miss the nature of Siberia. I miss the climate of Siberia, the weather of Siberia, because the weather in St. Petersburg is completely different from Siberia. That just made me think that it would be a funny but very expensive actually idea to have a museum of natural environments. Just imagine yourself a huge, colossal hangar, yeah, and each room of this hangar contains weather conditions like trees and weather and temperature, and flavors in the air, flavors of those region which this room represents, and lighting conditions. So by being in this room, you could actually feel yourself in those natural habitats, in those conditions. Like in one room, there's just sand, bright lights, no sense, and you're in Sahara, right? And the other room is there's a lot of pines, and the smell of the water, and I don't know, maybe pines too, and a lot of other stuff. And this is Siberia, etc., etc., etc. So if you want to really feel how some other person feels in a different country, in a different climate, you could just visit this museum and live it for yourself, feel it for yourself.
If you have overstayed your limit in a room, there a bear would appear in Siberia room, or like a cheetah will appear in Africa room, so that like
You
move away.
know, we actually could use some augmented reality glasses for that.
What is the name of this book you're reading? It sounds very interesting.
I'll write it in the chat.
Yes, please do. I'm learning. I love the idea of that.
I think Oleg told about his own concept, and the book.
The book is about Siberia, just about Siberia, but because I am from Siberia, and
just thinking this.
Yeah, I'm just making this.
But actually, Conan Doyle has a story. So Conan Doyle is well known for his Sherlock Holmes and The Lost World about dinosaurs, but also he has some short stories, and one of them I just love. It's called Raffles Howe's Discovery, and that is a story which was based on one hypothesis which was still existent during Conan Doyle's lifetime. So the hypothesis was that with a lot of electricity, with a really powerful charge, you could transform elements from one condition into another. So what happened within the story was that one man discovered how to transform lead into gold. And you could imagine, so lead was quite a cheap material, while gold was, of course, super expensive. And that man became a millionaire, then he became a billionaire, and then he became the richest person in the world. And he kept his discovery in secret, in very strict secret. And at the same time, to hide his secret better, he went to live in a village where he meets one family, which becomes the core characters of the story. So what was happening that this Raffles Howe built himself a house, and inside that house there were special rooms which, with help of different platforms and levers, were changing. So if he wanted to spend one evening in a tropical environment, he just pressed the button, and so he was in tropical forest, and then he pressed another button and he was in the Antarctica, and another button he was in Sahara, and so on and so forth. And that cost him, of course, a pretty penny, but he didn't care, because he was even planning to change the direction of rivers later using his money. So he was very enthusiastic and very ambitious about everything in his life. But then something happened, and don't want to spoil the story, but I strongly recommend to read it. So this kind of a museum, I think, coincides with, Oleg, your idea, with your concept, and I think it could be quite a nice journey for those who don't have a chance to experience other countries, but they could travel there. Or, as Misha said,
actually,
Sorry.
Actually, you could start from a budget option, low price option. You just could recreate sounds of this zone, yeah, and use some air flavors to feel the smell of this zone. And you could just put some headphones and smell this in. Close your eyes and pretend that you're standing somewhere in, I don't know, Sahara or somewhere.
I think we actually are very close to this because we have VR glasses which could show us the nature, the visuals, and then smells could be contained, and sounds. We have lots of applications and YouTube videos with different ambient sounds. So technically, we kind of have this in virtual reality. Let's see if this is possible in 3D reality. Well, Masha, Bayman, what about your museums?
My museum is about animals that are a little bit about existing animals and maybe extincting animals or existing now currently, and with a little nuance that the majority, the almost half of the animals, the objects are made up. There are real animals that existed and unreal animals that are made up, that it never existed. And people should find out is it really existed or it's made up.
Like a puzzle.
And maybe it's like a riddle, maybe. And people should find out it's to show that how diverse animals live on this planet.
Reminds of this joke, like people say unicorn has never existed, but why would a unicorn why would it be non-existent if we have this giraffe? Giraffe is basically a horse with a super long neck with spots, and it looks ridiculous. Like, why does this animal exist whatsoever while a unicorn is impossible? We have this whale with a horn, which is narwhal in Russian. I'm not sure if it is the same in English. So we have a swimming unicorn, and we have a giraffe, but we don't have a normal unicorn in life. What the hell? Why not?
Well, we have rhino.
What a unicorn.
Which is basically a unicorn.
Sweet. Yeah. I've never thought about that. Unicorn, which is a rhino.
Well, actually, there is a theory that tales about unicorns. They derived from descriptions of rhinos. Because rhinos were described without illustrations, like horses with horns. And then some romantic author, he didn't thought about some working horse, like a big and heavy horse. He just took some Arabian horse and put a horn into his head, on his head. And here we have a unicorn.
I heard a different story about that. They found a horn that was the horn of some fish or ocean animal. Big fin.
Narwhal.
Yes, they found it and they assumed that it could be on
horse's forehead.
It could be on horse's head, and it become a story like that.
Could be.
And there was another funny picture where there were different names of of medicaments, and that was 50% of the text, and another 50% was the names of Pokemon. And the question was, can you distinguish between Pokemon names and medicine? And that was a very hard and challenging task. It was literally impossible.
I saw the different one. It was with pharmaceutical brands and names of people in ancient Greece, ancient Rome.
So could be another museum, but I quite like this. This is a very, how to say, zoologically oriented museum where children are going to be tested and adults are going to be tested with their knowledge of zoology and fauna of our planet. But it's going to be a very costly project, I guess, to design the non-existent guys and to inhabit the place with existing animals. That's quite a long story, I should say. What would be the name? Noah's Ark?
Noah's Ark.
No, it's not Noah. It's just a second. I don't remember how they say it.
Noah.
Noah, I think.
Noah.
Yeah, Noah's Ark. Yeah.
Noah's Ark, 2 by 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Noah's Ark.
2 by 2, like 2
they
meters
walk-
by 2 meters.
Oh yes, no. It meant, like a female and a male. They walked into the Ark 2 by 2.
Oh.
Okay.
And Noah, you said it fine. I heard what you said. Noah, Noah. They had, it was so that they could carry on living. A male lion and a female lion and all those others. Wasn't it about continuing the species?
Well, it is a very engaging story, and it's been mocked in very many ways on the internet and in literature.
Especially about penguins.
Was it that picture with a penguin and an elephant? Something like that.
Oh.
This is about Family Guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, these two, of course.
There's also two animals, male and female, and 2 male lions.
Yeah,
Growing
I
up.
saw it too.
I haven't seen them. I haven't seen this.
That's normal when you have real life.
Yeah, I was about to say nobody has ever seen them. So, Masha, what's your concept?
I'm thinking about the museum.
Can you put your microphone back?
Okay, sorry. Sorry. I'm thinking about the Museum of Entryways. I don't know which word I should exactly use. I'm talking about which common places in living buildings with a lot of flats, and each flat has its own host, but all these hosts has this common place, like entryways with the stairs, lifts, and so on.
Hallways or doorways. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, thank you. Maybe hallways or doorways. So I would like to create maybe a museum of these hallways and doorways from different countries, because when I was traveling, I was really surprised by these hallways in Italy, in Austria, and it's totally different from our Russian hallways.
Музей падиков?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What? what is padik?
Come on.
I don't know it in Russian.
You don't know? I mean, you're
No.
from Kansk, you should know.
I don't know.
Oh.
What is padik?
You're
It's
not from
like,
Kansk.
it's Gopnik's name for подъезд.
Oh, really? Yes. Yes, it's Museum of Padiks. Yeah, and I would like to create it and and collect all the hallways, doorways from different countries, typical and non-typical. And I
Will
think it
you?
will be,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Will
Please ask
you?
me.
Will you censor what people write on the walls?
No,
No.
no censor.
That's good.
There will be 18 plus room with Russian hallways. Yeah, and we could check passport before and we'll do it. Yeah.
I have a dream to one day move in a very expensive apartment block with, you know, this elegant, exquisite elevator with like with expensive furniture around, and everything is stylish and meticulously organized and designed, and the lift would be just with mirrors and probably marble or expensive wood, and I would write our typical Russian word there. Just, just, just to kind of, how to say, to let me invent a verb, folklorize the place, or kind of bring this note, fragrance of our mental identity. Yeah. And then nobody would guess who did it. And
Yeah. So you want to bring the life in this place?
yeah,
Too sophisticated place.
I hate formality. I hate too much sophistication, because it's just kind of, again, it's suffocating. So people need to kind of be more cheerful. Yeah.
I once was in a flat, so it was a regular tall building. There were like 12 stories, and this flat had 7 rooms, and it had a marble statue in a doorway, and it had a jacuzzi and giant rooms, and it was so surreal because at that time I was renting a room, and it was more like a bum's office with the wood and the mold and the dark corners, and then people have something like this.
Bum's office. It's like homeless person enterprise, like homeless person incorporated, or like hobo limited. What?
Unlimited.
Oh, sorry. Actually, I did something like that. I was at university at that time. It was my 4th year, and we have this tradition in the 4th year. We have internship in some company, and my internship was in the parliament of Krasnoyarsk Krai, and I was kind of a lawyer's assistant there, and it wasn't actually anything special. I was just helping out with some tasks, but mostly I was just observing how our parliament was working, listening to the meetings and gatherings, and marveling at how our legislation works. So I was quite lucky to attend a session of our parliament, and during the breaks I was watching Dota on my phone, and and I was just like, how is that, guys? How is that? Like, I'm watching Dota like in the right in this building of Krasnoyarsk Parliament, and rebelling against the society, I guess. I just probably missed that Joker's mask around my face and all over my face. Yeah. And
Don't you think
Yes?
that you are alone? You were alone at that moment, playing Dota or maybe playing cards. I mean, among these people who
I don't
were
want
present.
to ridicule them, so I probably will keep what I saw to myself, at least in this case. Well, they don't talk about it, right? I mean, they don't want to. What was that? They don't want to lose face, and well, there is a lot of like this posh air around there, like suits and ties and formalities and so on and so forth, which is all one big let's say, curtain?
No, there is a famous phrase from a Soviet movie, Münchhausen, тот самый Münchhausen, you know, and the serious expression of face, it's not the sign of smart people. You can translate it necessarily.
Yeah, that's why I kind of feel very uncomfortable when it comes to formality.
Okay.
You wanted to say something?
No. I just listening to you.
Oh, okay. Right. So, let me just summarize. So we have concepts of... Sorry, there is a message on the chat. Andrew be like 2 to the 1 to the 1 to the 3. Who else thinks there should have been place on arc for Unicore except me? I can't process it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't either.
Yeah.
Well, could you rephrase it, man? Maybe. So let me summarize. We have a concept of a dreams museum, then a concept of a living rooms museum. What was next? Concept of diseases museum.
And stupidity.
And stupidity. Sorry, I apologize for my stupidity. So probably that would be my museum. Then, Caroline, that was the concept of songs which were misinterpreted. I mean, songs lyrics, which you called that specific word.
Mondrian.
Mondrian. Well, Mondrian.
Yes, that was the word. So what, a museum of misunderstanding?
Mm-hmm. So then there was the Museum of Changing Environments and Different Nature. Then there was quite a, like the follow-up museum of different species, both existent and non-existent, to teach people how to distinguish between them. And then the Museum of Hallways of different countries. That's a lovely collection. So, guys, shall we go on onto Kickstarter, and start crowdfunding, I guess? What shall be the first project to raise funds for? What's the most feasible one?
I think you or Caroline are the most cheapest. And they don't require a lot of money. So we can start with both of them.
Well, to print all my memes, that's like if one photo is, let's say, 20 rubles.
I have a printer. I have a printer.
Okay, that's...
It's black and white. Still.
We need a color,
Black and white.
Colored one.
Yeah.
So it will entail having a colored laser printer, and that's quite an expensive thing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I guess we could just place a display there and change some pictures on it.
They have to be tangible. It's like a family album. You have to touch them, kind of, or you have to believe that you can touch them. And that's a different story.
We could just put a pile of paper, so a person could touch a pile of paper and watch the screen.
How often do you do that, I wonder? I mean, I can extrapolate, and but yeah, I won't.
I don't want to talk about it in front of ladies.
All right, yeah, let's come back to the conversation later. Or maybe not. I don't know if it is the best idea. So. Right. And I believe that with this, we shall wrap up and probably draw conclusions. It sounds quite formal. Let's just share feedback. But you can draw conclusions if you want. You guys are like... You can point at someone and say you're weird. I'm not going to communicate with you, and like at me, for example. And so what do you have to say about this meeting that is just now finishing, and some final thoughts, maybe something that hasn't been expressed?
It's a great thing, and what's the most great about it, actually, is that we have a reason to be here and to talk. Yeah, like to talk in English, to practice our English skills. But what is most important for me, at least, is that I've just met a lot of beautiful people, and we talked about different interesting stuff, and that's kind of strange, if you think about that to meet some people and to talk to them, you should have a reason, like some excuse. Like we definitely should talk in English or in French or something. Why can't people just gather without those excuses and talk freely about some strange stuff? The life would be so funnier if we would be able to do it.
I thought about it when I was reading Kafka, Castle. I have forgotten the plot almost completely, but I remember he arrived in that city which was filled with mad guys, with mad population, and he thought that, or maybe it's my just free interpretation, but he thought that everyone was absolutely impossible to communicate with. But then after some time, some adequate people or kind of more agreeable people began to appear, and it only happened after the guy behaved. I mean, after the guy kind of had shown what he was in reality, like when he did something, when he or maybe I should say misbehaved, like kind of rebelled against the system. And when you rebel against the system, people who are also rebelling and hiding at the same time, they see you and they approach you, they find you, they locate you by your rebellious actions. So answering your question, I think it's this natural self-defense system that people who kind of have something to say quickly learn to store this inside, not to be reprimanded or ridiculed by the intellectual majority. And that's why they keep silence until they have a good reason to talk. And that usually has to be facilitated somehow by some censorship, some kind of threshold of entrance. And it happens so that English becomes this threshold.
Yeah.
Which is,
I agree,
kind of a very radical opinion of mine, but I'm afraid I have to conclude that.
Yeah, I'm a member of a book club, and the threshold there is books.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess you have to have some threshold always.
And lucky for me that you're meeting on English, otherwise I wouldn't have got to meet you, or I certainly would not have understood you all. And I think it's fantastic the way you're just also clever that you can just speak English on all these academic things. I mean, I find it quite intimidating, but anyway, I'm happy that you're meeting in English because I get to meet you all.
Why
And it's absolutely
intimidating?
mutual.
Yeah, it is mutual. Why?
Yeah, likewise.
Why intimidating?
Why intimidating?
Yeah, yeah. You said it looks intimidating.
Sort of go beyond intimidate. No, I just think maybe I'm exaggerating. No, I just think it's quite remarkable you how you can speak on such like literature and like it's not simple literature. It's sort of like, and explain what this author means and that author means, and it's not your mother tongue. And I think that's just brilliant. I mean, I'm really, I suppose I do find it a bit intimidating. I can't imagine explaining this in French. I'm just thinking we did school French, or I think it's amazing.
It's quite a maybe weird idea, but I think, well, I for one can say that I can talk about that in English, I think, better than I can talk about it in Russian. Partly because I normally do it in English, partly because I kind of have recreated myself through English. So when you study the language, you have to reconsider almost everything in your life. Every single minute of your life, you have to kind of revoke from your memory and then put it into a new language. And then it stays with this new language connected to it, kind of circulating around. So you can talk about that more easily than you can talk about that in your mother tongue. And this is my case. I don't know if others could relate, but I definitely can say that.
I've noticed that my way of thinking, I'm sorry, my way of thinking really differs when I say something in English. It becomes more reasonable, more logical.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because of this is not my native language. It's not my mother tongue. I have to actually think about what I'm saying from time to time, at least, which is definitely not the deal when I say something in Russian. This is way more stupider. And it's like when you speak in a foreign language, it's like you are the knife and you become more sharper. I'd say something like that.
That's very interesting.
I'd like to follow up this idea, and actually about knife, it's nice because I wanted to say that English is like, speaking English is like brandishing a sword, which you actually hold in your hands, because when I went to our TV channel to talk about Africa, and it was in Russian, I thought, well, when I was translating, when I was interpreting a musician from English to Russian, I thought, well, in English I actually have all the necessary vocabulary very close to my kind of processor in my head. I can, at any time, I can probably launch many variations of language, and they are all kind of how to say, they are all available. While when I speak Russian, I only can rely on my intuition, and it wasn't enough for me. It wasn't. I mean, I was used to feeling that I can at any moment launch some specific construction in English, while in Russian it's only automatic. My brain is automatic, and it's not what I would like to do now. I would like to be in control of what I'm saying. So after those 2 episodes, I actually began to read Russian books, because I was like, well, where is my Russian? What has happened? And to return my control over myself.
You know, the great illustration is when we speak English, we don't use some parasitic words, some trash words.
I always use like and well.
Well, it's all you, yeah.
The one that I really hate is how to say.
Yeah. And all the stuff like or when we speak in our native languages, we use a lot of words that we actually should not use, especially in front of children. And when we speak in English, we look like we are really some sort of professors, doctors of medicine or something. I don't know.
Well, I don't know, very controlled. I think if I was speaking a foreign language, it would make me totally out of control. Anyway, it's great.
Well, who would like to add with the feedback?
I just wanted to say thank you, because it was really thoughtful and interesting conversation, and I am glad I was a part of it.
We are honored.
And I can add
how to do it.
I expected.
You're almost there, I guess. No, it's like his first version was like something like.
Yes, Bayman?
Yes, it was very informative, because I've learned a lot of things especially about Russian literature, because I don't know much about this kind of literature, and this maybe it pushed me sometimes to like pick something from Russian literature. I could try. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thanks for taking part. Thanks for being flexible to take part.
You're welcome.
As usual with you, it was fun, and I'm glad that I'm here.
I'm glad that your microphone wasn't a waste of money.
I can't. I will listen to the record and make my conclusion. But I'm glad that you're glad. That means that you are very sensible to quality of sound in many respects, and because of your opinion, I think it's worth. Yeah, it's worth.
Yeah.
I believe you. In other words.
Thanks, Vadim. I appreciate it. It means a lot. It means a lot from you. Yeah.
Yeah, and as for me, I think today's conversation was really deep and interesting, and I also knew some things, and it gives me a lot of thoughts that I need to rethink maybe and to make my own conclusion. But yeah, it was really deep.
So that I said, draw conclusions wasn't that far from reality. Actually, we are not giving feedback. We are drawing conclusions, or we are planning to draw conclusions. Actually, this phrase sounds hilarious in Russian. I mean, some of my students said, like, I spoke English too much and I'm going to say this in Russian too. And if you translate this, it sounds like kind of business or prison or business prison language. Misha, I'd like to say something.
Actually, no, I don't have any thoughts to add at the end. Yeah, I just enjoyed this time, and it was 3 hours already of this call. And
of what exactly? So yeah.
It's actually pretty funny because when we started, the lighting behind Michael's window was white.
Yeah.
And right now it's black.
Yeah, it's
Earth
nice
is
here.
rotating.
You can watch the stream and check at different time the color of this window.
Yeah.
It was blue at some time.
Today Eugenia was first red, or rather orange, but then now it is kind of pastel color, which is quite interesting. So, and Masha also had very interesting color when this darkness was falling. It was very kind of, how to describe this? It's this very royal black color, just noir style, and yeah.
And it was a really cinematic lightning, you know, those still orange lightning. Yeah.
Thank you, my laptop.
So I should say, well, I have a peculiar feature to usually, what's that? To ridicule what I do, and I'll do it this time too. So I've been feeling quite under the weather, and I don't have this impetus today. I mean, I don't have this momentum which usually helps me to drive the meeting forward. I don't know if you felt it or not. If you didn't, then it is good. And if you did, sorry for that. It's something which is beyond my control. I assembled myself as much as possible, but well, that was what was possible, and I really hope it wasn't anyhow influential on the meeting, and it was massively interesting, yes, and we had wonderful ideas, and I feel quite how to say disappointed with myself that I can't really properly react to such wonderful concepts that you bring here about the museums and all the ideas, but well, Anyway, I shall remember that. I shall remember the your museum
Come to our museum.
projects, and we maybe one day will be able to build this. And I'm actually very happy that this time, unlike last time, we have a living record of all the ideas. I think maybe because in our office at our school I have all the folders, I think in total more than 10 already, all the English clubs, all the questions, all the concepts and ideas and jokes, and like it is I think already more than 1,000 of pages of materials, and I just need to rummage through and find this museum meeting.
Do you keep just one copy of a day, not like 10 pages of the same one?
I keep the clean ones, and
Okay, one of a clean one.
no, I keep several because sometimes I can use them at my lessons, or there is some kind of maybe some picture which somebody drew and I don't want to lose it, and yeah, so I keep several, which makes my collection really heavy. So that's it, and I really appreciate that you guys found time to join, and thanks to the chat. You were wonderful today, and thanks for all the support. It means a lot, guys, and we shall meet for English Bonfire number 9, I think, next Saturday. Would anyone like to reserve a place now before it is?
I would like.
Okay.
As usual.
1, 2.
I like to do it.
Okay.
And I.
Okay.
Me too.
Baiman, Misha?
I am not sure.
Yeah, sure.
Right now.
Okay, Misha, you are thinking.
Yeah.
All right. So let me know. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It means 3 vacant places.
Andy, I would love to be there. Can I confirm with you?
Sure, please.
What days should I confirm with you?
Well, the earlier the better.
Right.
Like Wednesday, Thursday, if it is possible.
Great. No, that's fine. There's just something I've got to sort
Sure.
out. I would love to be here, but I would like to be able to confirm with you.
Sure. Well, that's it. Enjoy your rest of the weekend, and see you soon, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.